Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the New Earth Leadership Summit, inspiring spiritual entrepreneurs like you to step into their personal power so that you can become the leaders of New Earth. And with me today, I have a very special guest. I have Linda Starwolf, PhD, and she is a shamanic visionary teacher and a guide to thousands of people over the last 4 decades. And I've got her resume here. It is impressive. So I'm going to try and pick out some really awesome points. So you actually started in the mental health field, working with addictions and recovery. And then it has morphed over the years. And I want to talk about that in more detail, but now we have several books, including the Shamanic Breathwork book. You have the Shamanic Healing Initiatory Process, or SHIP. The foundation of Venus Rising Association for Transformation, which is a nonprofit organization. And you're the founding president of the Venus Rising University for Shamanic Psychospiritual Studies. And
I've been around for a while. I've been busy.
You just came back from one of your Shamanic Mystery Tours, which is
Yes.
something that you also host and guide. So there's so much to dig into just from that comprehensive list. Let's just start for fun. I'd love to hear about, how did the last tour go? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my goddess. We just took a group along with my co-leaders, with my husband, Nicholas Wolf, with Vera Lopez, who's a longtime trip leader, and we lead trips, and we brought together her company, Spirits of the Earth, and Venus Rising's Shamanic Mystery Tours, and we took a group of people, and it was 20 people, through the mysteries of Avalon and to the magical places in Glastonbury and Tintagel and all across the UK. And I was talking to Vera on the phone. I said, "I'm so tired." She said, "Well, darling," she's in Brazil. "Darling, we went through 21 initiations." I'm like, "Yes, we did." So we were, it was just a beautiful journey. And we're already having people saying, "When are you going back? When are you going back?" So we're actually looking at the possibility of taking one of our trainings there next year, with an overlay, with the Avalonian Mysteries being a part of an overlay on our training. So
Oh my gosh.
we'll see what happens. But one of the highlights was we had a private time at Stonehenge with no one else there but our group, which is kind of, those are given out very, very, you have to buy them a year ahead of time. And so that was very, very special to be there with just our circle.
Wow. Any powerful visions come through on the trip for you?
So many. I felt kind of overwhelmed, and it takes a lot to overwhelm me. But we were there during the blood full Scorpio moon, when is the day we began.
Wow.
That wasn't planned, but it happened, and there was so much energy going through my body. I was literally vibrating, and I thought, I didn't have any caffeine, and I was just like this. And for me personally, just as I make this brief, but I've been all around the world, and I have avoided, for some reason, the Avalon and Mysteries. And when I was there, I really got clear for me that I have lived a lifetime, many lifetimes, where I've been one of the people burned at the stake. And there's a lot of that energy there. You can feel it. There's all that great mystery and beautiful. But then, there's the end of Avalon as it was, and whether that's myth or archetypal, I think it's multidimensional. Most of us remember that, especially people like you, like me, we remember those times somewhere in our DNA. And my ancestors are actually from there too. So I think that there was a ancestral trauma for me, and that me being the ancestor actually.
Yeah.
And then to begin it on the Scorpio moon like that really kind of said, and yes, that's why you're here at this time,
That's right.
So I did a lot of healing, and we just had, the trip went with, I'm not going wood, but it just went on without a hitch. Everything went great. The group bonded, and we were in magnificent places in nature, which is my favorite. We were at Glastonbury, and at the Abbey and all of that, and the, cathedrals and stuff, but it's in nature those phenomenal waterfalls and, the coast and the wild winds. And yeah, it was awesome.
I love that. And just for the audience to know, so this mystery tours, they continue, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to bring it back to it later because Linda Starwolf has some amazing events coming up that she wants to share with you. But I want to take a thread of what you said about ancestral trauma healing and sort of link it back to your personal journey, because I just feel like there's a connection there, right, between addiction and recovery and
yes.
trauma healing. So can you take us on the journey of how you came from that background into the work you do now?
Well, I always smile when somebody says, and she began with mental health. And I was like, and there's a reason for that. There's an old saying that we teach best what we most need to learn. And I humbly admit that I was a hot mess as a teenager. And I think most teenagers are a hot mess, but
I would agree. I was
pretty much a hot mess in the 1960s. Okay. And everything was up just as it is now. I mean, everything. And I feel like Back to the Future
right?
is what I feel like right now, is that I'm recircling on a spiral around the same things. So it's amazing, and it's my own core teaching that we teach through Venus Rising, is that life is not linear, that we're on a spiral path. It's not even a circle.
Yes.
We're on a spiral path. Everything orbits, all planets. Water, when you flush the toilet, it spirals around the toilet. If it goes down the sink, there's nothing in life that's not spiraling. The cells in your body, as your heart pumps the oxygen through your blood. So we're on a spiral path. And my beginning, for myself, was being in the 60s, going through a huge paradigm shift, watching the world radically go from black and white to multicolor and multidimensional. The music changed drastically. The hairstyles changed. The clothes changed. All the psychedelics came in. All the meditation and the gurus came in. Everything hit this 13-year-old psyche, if you will. And I also, from the ancestral lineage, my father fought in the Korean War, was on the front lines. He had PTSD. He's on the other side now. And he was one of the gentlest people you'd ever meet, but he personally killed many people. He told me that. He was on machine gun, and he also had to do hand-to-hand combat. So most of the children my age came from parents like that, where there was a father who was PTSD, and that affected the family. My father was a gentle man, but he had rage issues based on his PTSD. And there were some, I hate to even say it because I love him and I still want to protect him, but there was some violence there in our home. It was sporadic. It didn't happen very many times, but enough that someone could have really gotten seriously harmed. Okay. And then my mom was a person who worked hard and did the things she needed to do in life. And she's a good person. She's still around. She's 91. But my mom was very, how should I put it? She wanted to be modern. She'd grown up without electricity in Kentucky when she was a little girl. And she wanted to be modern. And she was kind of tough, and she was the tough one. She was more masculine than my dad. And so there wasn't a lot of nurturing. She would die for me, I know that, but there wasn't the nurturing. So my nurturing came from my mammy and my pappy, my mom's mom and dad, where I stayed every day when my mom went to work and my dad went to work on their farm. And that was the magic for me, and that was the healing for me. And I love my mom and dad right down the street they live, but I really didn't ever want to go home, because there I was the only child. I had these grandparents, I had nature, and I had a grandmother from the old country, from like Ireland, Scotland area, that believed in fairies, gnomes, aliens, and Jesus, and taught me all those things.
I love it.
Okay. And let me sleep with my baby chickens in the bed, which drove my mother insane. So you could, there she was, and my grandmother never wore shoes, except when we had to go to town. Neither did I. like the one I went to school. So I had this really mama trying to go into the new world and get a dishwasher, and my grandmother washing clothes on a washboard board. And
Mm.
and I preferred my grandmother's world, right? But she died suddenly when I was 12. And when that happened, and my grandfather was a coal miner, and he was a beautiful, sweet man, and he couldn't hear well from being in the coal mines. And when she died, he just kind of lost himself, and so he wasn't really present for me. So the point that I'm making is at the pivotal age of 12 to 13, which most people, psychologists I know, say that that is the turning point age for people, of frequently and esoterically where the wound happens. Most people can think back between 12 and 13 or 14, and there's something that happened in their life that was their shamanic initiation. So these immediate ancestors I just spoke about, plus the ancestors before them, ones that I don't even know, obviously people go through wars and, sexual abuse and illness and all kinds of things, and confusions, mental illness, and all of us have it in our lineages. And there's a blood lineage, there's an alchemical lineage, and there's if you will, like a etheric double. There's like an energy that travels and that you kind of carry it until somebody stops long enough to say it ends with me. And tag, I got to be it. I went through my own kind of insanity and addiction and fun and craziness and all of that in the 60s and 70s. But when I came out of it, when I finally came out of it, fully out of it at the age of 29, I was already working in the mental health field with others when I finally really realized that I had addictions. And that's when I really dove into working with people who had addictions, because I understood from the inside out how I had developed emotional and mental problems, and how that had kicked off, I think, a biochemical response in my body, and probably a lineage, that I inherited from that. And there was nobody to blame. There was nobody that was going to heal that except me. And I had no clue how to do it. So I began to research, and I've written about it actually in this book. Ta-da!
Yay!
It says Shamanic Breathwork, The Nature of Change. And this is a book actually written by myself and 26 of my main facilitators that I've trained in the world. But I discovered the methods for myself. Recovery. I said it's really powerful that I speak about this, that I brought in recovery for myself. And that was, for me, traditional 12-step recovery. And then it carried over from addiction recovery to codependency recovery. And I realized I was a bigger codependent than I was actually a substance addict, and that was there first. Then I looked at food, and I also quit smoking. And then I began there wasn't even a word called adult children of alcoholics at that time, but they came out after that. And even though my mom and dad were not alcoholic, they had alcoholic behavior. And I could trace it back to a grandfather who was an alcoholic. So the children of, and grandchildren of alcoholics. And so that fascinated me, that people we didn't even know about were affecting us in that way. And of course, now I've come such a long ways past that. I really understand that these are the ancestral wounds that whatever doesn't, it says it in the Bible, and I grew up as a Christian, as a child, and knew the Bible back and forth, that the sins of the mothers and the fathers are visited upon the children. And what that means is what they don't take care of, tag, you get to do. You probably get the golden opportunity to heal some of that for them.
Yeah.
So when you heal yourself, when you do the healing work for yourself, it's not only just for you and your present day family, but you are going all the way back, because it stops with you.
It reminds me of the medicine cards that we were talking about. So your spirit grandmother, who I definitely want to talk about. So just so people know, I'm talking about this deck, which is one of the most popular decks in the world, right? It's like one of
Yes.
the top selling. She talks about in one of the teachings about how the healing work you do on yourself, if you don't do it, it affects the next 7 generations,
Yes.
right? So the 7 generations, does this work? So we know time isn't linear. We're talking about the spiral. So as we're healing ourselves, we're healing the past and the future. Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. And I love it that you said that, because I got chills on my body just hearing that, because I've done so much inner work, and it wasn't just enough for me to do the inner work for myself. It was just an inner drive to say, oh my God, this is true probably for everyone universally. And
Mm,
if I can help bring my own healing, and then if I can help teach other people, then maybe we have a chance on this beautiful spiraling orbiting planet to really heal and change the world for real. But the world doesn't need to change. Humans need to change. That's the only thing that needs to change on the planet. Everything else is transforming and changing exactly the way it's supposed to.
mm,
Humans just need to grow up
yeah.
and quit being adult, children, but become adults. I like to say, instead of being adult children of alcoholics, ACOAs, become adult children of God or higher power.
Mm.
Be an ACOG,
Oh,
adult children of God. God is all that is. And know that your parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, all those people are really just your brothers and sisters. Maybe
yes.
older, but they're just your brothers and sisters. We have this big projection onto them. They are not the gods. They are not they have the divinity within them. We all do, but they are not the gods.
Beautiful. And what you're talking about, you've been doing this work for 40 years. I mean, I know you know this, but I want to say it to you anyway. You have such a massive ripple effect. You're definitely affecting the spiral. There's a lot of healing that's come through you, but is passing through you into others, and the ripple just keeps going. And more people taking up the mantle of this kind of work, where they are initiating with their own healing. I mean,
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that
Beautifully said.
I feel like, gosh, it's just right there on the tip of my brain. I'll come back to it if it comes back, but it's just what you're talking about and our potential. So, I know, the adult children of God. So being spiritually, like children, and I mean in the maturity level, and not like little children, like we're being asked to come through our inner child, and bring that fully forward, but
Right.
rather the lack of maturity. So the spiritual maturity coming through. I feel like this is tied to ascension and new earth. I feel like that's the
Mhm.
graduation point, right? Where we graduate from the immature into more of a maturity. I don't think it happens all at once. I'm sure it's
Mhm.
gradual, but and your take on that.
Yeah, I think that, the first place for me is really about humility, which is different than humiliation.
Mm,
And the reality is if we don't have more of a humility, then we will have to hit humiliation
uh-huh.
repeatedly, and it's called hitting a bottom. But the humbleness, it's not like, oh, I'm just so humble, or I'm just nothing. It's not that at all. After all, we're the children of God, so we're pretty cool. We're pretty royal. We're royals. People say, I'm not a royal. We're all royals because we all came from that divine source. And I believe that we're coming home to the memory of that and saying, hey, my parents, my family members, whether they were screwed up or not, or, aren't we all, or whatever, they're really just my brothers and sisters. And whatever mistakes they've made, whatever shadows they've had, and whatever accomplishments they've had are theirs, but they're also mine, because I get to learn from the light, the dark, no difference. I get
Mhm.
to learn from the light and the shadow. That's part of being a human. Maybe someplace else they just learn from the light. Here we learn from light and shadow and all the colors of the rainbow. So as we're learning these beautiful rainbow lessons, some we prefer over others, some are
Right.
easier than others, we're really becoming, I believe, what Grandmother Twyla referred to as the rainbow people. And rainbow people is not just the color of your skin. It refers to that too, and the people of the many nations, but that we are becoming the rainbow people. And in the esoteric world, it's called building the Antankarana. And the Antankarana is the rainbow bridge between this planet and all the other, you know, galaxies and systems and dimensions in the universe or the multiverse. Okay? And that these pathways are open to us the more we do our own inner work. And inner work can be setting out in the sun and singing, or it can be scrubbing the toilet, you know, it could
Yeah.
be dealing with stuff that that I don't want to admit. Doing shadow work is really a deep part of doing ascension work. Some people say, I won't do that, I'm just ascending. I'm like, well, with that attitude, you're going to have to descend a whole lot before you ascend any further. And it is a spiral path because you'll hit your zenith in a particular class, and then you'll need to start over with something else, which means descending. So
Mm.
for me, ascension is like this.
Yeah.
It's not a linear path to ascension. And it's a everyday experience that happens in everyday life, whether it's in the mundane or whether it's in the extraordinary and synchronistic and archetypal realms.
Mm. This is, I mean, I'm lighting up because I love this conversation. This is like my happy place. So I'm like, yes, say more. But I do want to talk about, so you brought up a few things that I want to merge together and share the story because it's a beautiful story. So I want to talk about the path of Star Wolf and also your spirit grandmother, because she plays a big part in who you transformed into. So can we hear this story?
I always tear up just when anybody brings this up, because I know I wouldn't probably alive today if it wasn't, especially for those two grandmothers, the grandmother that passed when I was 12, who really infused me with the memory of who it is that I am as a child, and talking to star beings and talking to those things. And when my grandmother would say, my mom would say, don't fill her head with that kind of stuff. And my grandmother, Mammy Jones, would say, but it's true. And my mother go, you know, but she left. And when she left, and I felt so bereft and alone with all that magic swirling around and no teacher. Okay. And the teacher was my own fumbling through adolescence in the 1960s into the 70s. But it wasn't until I had gotten sober, I was 29. I was still working the mental health, I was working in addictions, and I felt, even in my recovery, and even with my budding spirituality, and I was teaching Course in Miracles on Saturdays, and I was doing all these things, I felt something wasn't there. It felt like there was a groundedness that was missing.
Mm.
And my Cherokee friend, Teresa, who I'm eternally grateful for, that I actually helped her get sober, because we'd been young women together and partying and stuff. And so I helped her with her sobriety. And then she said, is there something I can do for you? And I said, I don't know. I just have this longing. So I've written about it in several of my books. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but what I will say is that she gave me a ceremony to do every day for 30 days. She said, I believe that you're not going to feel fill up this emptiness until you actually have a grandmother energy in your life, to guide you and support you. She said, because, it sounds like you're really fully ready, getting ready to step on the medicine path, the shamanic path. And I was doing it on my own. I was reading books and, various things. And I wanted a teacher, you know. And she gave me a method to meditate and go through some visionary things. And lo and behold, that teacher appeared in a vision. But then I didn't know if she existed in this world. So it took a few years. I'm not sure exactly. It was 2 or 3 years, I think, because this is a long time ago. And I still was using a phone with a cord on it. Okay, so there was no computers to Google anything, that sort of thing. But through, as I said, I've written about it, but I finally found a way to reach out and contact a woman named Grandmother Twyla Nitch, who is the Wolf Clan grandmother on the Seneca and in the reservation outside of Buffalo, New York, in the Cattaraugus Reservation there. And the long story short is that I went out to see her, and that when I got there and she walked out of her house without having seen me before or even spoken to me, because I'd called her house, got a number, but I talked to someone else, and all they said was, she wants you to come. And I'm like, she didn't know who I am. She said for you to come. So I went, and she walked out the back door, not knowing I was going to be there on the day that I was, walked straight to me, came right up in front of me and looked at me. And as she looked at me, the first words to me was, I gave you a name. What was it? And I thought I was going to wet myself. And she looked at me. I'm serious. I was just like, ah. And I thought, oh, let's screw this up, my one chance here. And I said, Star Wolf, like that. And then she looked at me and she smiled and she said, yes, come on in the house. So I started to follow her, and I thought, well, gosh, if she gave me that name, looks like she would have remembered it herself. Doubting Thomas here.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, she read my mind. She turned around, looked me right in the eyes, and she said, and I gave you that name in a vision in an underground kiva. Which was exactly where it was. And I mean, there was no way she could know that except in this way that she knew. And my knees buckled. She took my arm and we walked in the house. She said, come on in. Oh. And so from there, she adopted me as her granddaughter, and she taught me her ways, her medicine ways. And she said, now go teach others. And, she passed in 2011, I believe it was. And she was 94 years young, and she was respected and loved all around the world. When the Dalai Lama came to the United States, he went out to the reservation to see her, and they played in the snow together. And they were, she's very, very short. Like I'm 5'3" and she's like an inch shorter than me.
Oh, wow.
So she was just, she was a spitfire, but she had wolves, and she was the Wolf Clan grandmother. And that is the clan, the Wolf Clan in the Seneca tradition is the clan of teachers, pathfinders, way showers between, for your own life, but also between the realms, between here and between the great star nations.
Wow.
She told me that the wolf spirit was not from the earth. It was from Sirius, the blue star. And I said, oh, you mean the dog star? She said, no, honey, I mean the wolf star. And I said, I thought it was called the dog star. She said, well, that's what people who don't know any better call it. She said, dogs came from this world. They morphed, and they were bred and over and domesticated. Wolves were, until they became dogs. And then the various types of dogs that were domesticated became making all the species that we know.
Yeah.
But dogs were from the earth, but their ancestors are wolves, and the wolves were from the blue star. And the wolves had a different kind of consciousness, and they were the teachers.
This is such a beautiful segue, because one of my favorite metaphors, it's not even a metaphor, it's just a truth around leadership, which is what we're talking about in this conference, is the way an alpha wolf leads the pack, where they're they're not in the front like everyone thinks. They're at the back,
Right.
and they're the strong force that's protecting, because it's like, we're only as strong as our weakest members, right? So there's the strength
Yes.
at the back.
Yes. I wrote a book called Spirit of the Wolf. And there's this famous picture that became on the front of t-shirts all around the country. It's three wolves howling at the moon. And that's on the front
Yeah.
of my book. And the artist from that woman is from Hungary. And she allowed me to use that image on the front of the book as my book cover. And so it's called Spirit of the Wolf. And it talks about each of the members of the wolf pack. It talks about the different types of wolves. And my son and I actually wrote that book together. And what I did is I laid on the couch and channeled it. He recorded it and transcribed it and edited it. That's how that book got written. And, but you're so right. And I also included 2 or 3 people who'd actually lived long-term with wolves and there who validated it and who spoke about their relationships with the wolves, of living with the wolves. And I've had the opportunity to, I have 2 dogs that are very close to kin to being wolves. And I've actually had, wolf encounters where I went to be with live wolves. And there's something about being with the wolf energy that is otherworldly. It's, there's not a way to describe it if you've never been with a wolf, a large wolf,
Yeah.
and felt their intelligence looking at you and you realized you were inferior. That they had sized you up, they knew, read you, that they were allowing you to live, and they're like assessing you and that sort of thing. But the medicine of the wolf, this is something I don't know if you know this or not, that the wolf pack or the wolf tribe in all traditions, whether it's in different Native American traditions, even in Japan, there's a wolf tribe, and the ancient peoples there's wolf tribes in Egypt, there's wolf tribes in Africa. Now around the world, there may be different eagle clans or bear clans or wolf clans, but the most, if you want to say, widespread or popular clan in the world that's found universally, which many clans are not, is the wolf clan. And the thought is what Grandmother Twyla had said to me, because she said, we're not the only wolf clans. There's wolf clans all around the world. And in New Zealand, she said, there's wolf clans everywhere. And she said, because the wolf is the archetypal guide for humanity.
Wow.
It's the teacher. It's here. You hear that dogs are man's best friend, but the wolves are the earth's best friend, because they show us how if we would live in the way that they do, that we would have the balance on the planet.
You are reminding me of that story, right? Wasn't it about Yosemite National Park, where they had pulled the wolves back, right? And what happened is the river went dry.
Yes.
Because there wasn't enough wolves to keep the balance. So when you say that, it's just like, wow, because we have literal proof of that. But also you're talking about this spiritual guide energy that's coming through. So can we tap into that and talk about leadership and how we can, how can we tap into this wolf energy without maybe not seeing ourselves as wolf clan, although could we see ourselves as that? Do we claim it, or does it claim us?
Well, I think it's a both and. I think that many people, yourself, for instance, are out there being wolf people. They may not, have owned that in that sort of way. And then sometimes, when people come through our trainings and things and they say, Star Wolf, will you give me a name? I really, in addition to being certified, I really want to step out in the world with my wolf name and part of this wolf tribe and wolf pack. And, so it's really, I would say, self-selective, that when you're a wolf person, because the wolf is a pathfinder, the way shower, the teacher, the protector, the nurturer, the one that looks back to, when I was in Glastonbury, and we were walking up the hills, and we were walking up the tour, and we were doing all these things, and it was very steep, and we were walking for long, several miles and that sort of thing. I'm a little older, but I'm actually in good shape. But I noticed that some of the elders, we had people of all ages. We had some 20-year-olds and some 70-something-year-olds. And so, I went back to the back and I said to some other people, you can walk up in the front, I'll walk back here. And I stayed with the elders. And then a couple of the guys noticed I was doing that. And then they came back. And before long, I came back and then I was at the front again because people really got it. Like, it wasn't about rushing and being the first one to the top of the tour, to the top of the mountain. It was about, making sure we all got there and that we stopped and let people rest who needed to rest. And they had a drink of water. And it's about compassion and kindness as well. And watching out for the pack. And so anyone can own this energy. And, I would say that if you're called to it, it is self-selective in that way. And then if you want to do something more formal with that, you can seek out, a grandmother. I'm a Wolf Clan grandmother now. And so you can seek someone out in that way to see what they have to share about it, if it calls to you.
I want you to be my grandmother.
I would love to be your grandmother. You have great hair.
I love that that's my qualification.
That's it. I tell people in the group when they go through the training, I'm like, okay, you've got great hair, you get to graduate. And I've had some guys who had their heads shaved and they said, what about us? And I said, oh, honey, you have an etheric afro that's out of this world. So
I love that. Oh,
yeah.
It's so good. But what you just said, you said something about leadership that I haven't heard someone say yet. And it was in your story about on the tour, but you said making sure everyone gets there.
Yes.
And I was just like, that's the essence that I'm trying to get to with these questions is what do we do? And I just love there's a power. I'm like shaking right now. There's a power and a simplicity in it. Just make sure everyone gets there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, sometimes you have to slow down in order to hurry up because you can get so hurried that you just go on and you go back to that, that linear path, some refer to as the patriarchy, but I feel like doing that a lot of times is tagging, saying something about the masculine. And I really just want to say that sometimes I need to go straight to the grocery store and not stop.
Yes.
Hard for me because I'll see a turtle on the road but anyway, and I'm going to help the turtle. I'm just going to do it. So, but anyway, Grandma Twyla said, before you pick that turtle off the road, notice which direction it was headed because it will come back again trying to go there. I was like, oh, I never thought of that. She says,
I never thought of that either.
Notice which direction when you picked it up, it was headed.
That's a very good point.
If you're going to be a shamanic Uber, then take the turtle where it's going, right? So sometimes I need to quickly move the turtle and go directly to the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
That's okay to do that linear thing because I have guests at 7. I need to get home. I need to cook. I need to do whatever. But at other times, it's really important, especially when I'm teaching, especially when I'm working with people. Of course, I may have to, like today, we have to stay in a time frame,
yes,
certain, that sort of thing. And at the same time, what does it matter if, we get to the top of the tour, and we're up there with this beautiful tower and looking out over Avalon, if we've caused someone to get hurt along the way because they couldn't walk as fast or they just gave up, so I'll just stay down at the bottom, or what have we accomplished? It's ego driven, and I can do that. I can go there. I mean, we're human, and we want to shine and we want to have the top of the mountain experience.
Yeah.
But the top of the mountain can be pretty lonely if you get there and you're there all by yourself, or you're there with just some other people who are trying to beat you up the top of the mountain. And there's something that happens. And I really loved it when 2 of the guys who were really the go-getters just stopped and came back and started walking with me and a couple of people in the back. And I whispered in both their ears, I said, thank you, and I see you. And they're like, I said, and Grandmother Twyla would be proud of you, And then after that, I didn't have to say anything. When we were climbing down cliffs and going to waterfalls, they stopped and they were helping other people down, And they saw that I didn't run first to be the first one in the waterfall. you know, which could have been my right as a teacher to go first and to do this, or no, you know. And so there's, to me, you know, I can be funny and rambunctious and, you know, all over the place. But my deepest sense is that what we need on this, we always said what the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's true. Well, what does love look like? And to me, love looks like empathy. And that means me too. That's all empathy means, me too. And boy, when somebody who's going through something, if you can genuinely say me too, that can work wonders for that person, especially if they respect you. So teachers, instead of trying to be elevated, I encourage you to get human. If you want to ascend quicker, become human, become embodied and real as much as you can. And in that realness, you make ascension possible for everybody. You know, someone says, oh, well, I need to do this, I need to do that. One of the things that I do appreciate about Christianity is that, you know, supposedly Christ was there on the mountain, and, you know, after the crucifixion had happened, and or was getting ready to happen, and there was somebody there saying, basically, I screwed up my whole life. I deserve to die, but you shouldn't deserve to die. And he said, you'll be with me in paradise today. It's like, wait a minute, this guy screwed up his whole life, and at the last minute he could say, you know, you don't deserve to die, Jesus. And he's like, okay, you get to come with me, you know. So the point that I'm making about that is that kindness changes everything. And because that guy says, you know, well, I don't deserve to go there with you. And he said, I don't deserve to be saved. And he says, you'll be with me today in paradise. There's an empathy and a compassion and a me too and a humility and a kindness that somehow needs to permeate human consciousness in the midst of all this. Got to get to the top.
Absolutely. And what you said about teachers embracing their humanity, that's what attracts the people. It's like your realness is what is attractive, not your accomplishments. Your accomplishments actually, and sometimes, I mean, I've been talking to people like you who have accomplished much in a lifetime, and it can be intimidating,
yeah,
to approach. And so I love the approach you take with people by being with them. So again, that beautiful wolf leadership, where it's not about I'm the strongest and look at me. It's about I'm the strongest. Let me give some of this strength to you.
yeah. And it just, you know, what you give, you receive. You know, it's that lemniscate, it's that figure eight, it's that flow of energy, it's an esoteric energy. First of all, when you pour that out, there's something that quickens within you, and there's something that it's like you get more oxytocin, you get more you know, of the feel good chemicals yourself in your body, and serotonin. You know, how can you be depressed when you're in that place? I may get upset or angry or frustrated or sad, but I'm never depressed. You know, I'm just not. And you know, if you're, let me put it this way, even if whatever I'm doing doesn't change the destination of what happens on this planet, it will have been fun doing it.
Yes.
You know, it will have felt good doing it. And just a quickie, if I could, is that many years ago, and I'll speed this up, I know we're running out of time, but this is really important to me. We have these beautiful elemental temples over on our mountain. We came here and acquired 50 acres on top of a mountain, so many in 2003. And over there, we've built these elemental temples. And the reason we did that is because I had a vision with a breath work with inner journey with Isis. And she said to me, build the temples and they will come. So this is where we do our breath works, our trainings, and all the things we do. And people can also just go over there when they visit and stuff. And we were just at the medicine wheel, which is, you know, huge. It's, you know, all these stones, and each one weighs a couple of 1,000 pounds. They're huge, beautiful.
Wow.
So anyway, So in this one breath work, I was really upset, and I was, because I saw the destruction of the world, and I was crying, and I said to Isis, you know, all this work I've been, ever since I was a teenager, I've been trying to work and change, you know, save the world, change the world, and this all been for nothing. And I'm crying in my breath work, and she lifts me up like a little kitten. She's so big, and she's holding me, and she's standing on the mountain over there, and she looks at me and she said, "Did you enjoy what you were doing?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Did you love really big?" And I said, "Oh yeah." You know, and she said, "And did people love back?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she said, "Was there more love because of it?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Someday, someday this planet will end, whether it's from human beings not taking care of it, or whether it's simply because a few billion years from now the sun burns out. It'll be a cold hard stone floating in this earth sky. Yes, the world will end someday. And the only thing that will last from this earth is the love that you felt and created and made. That will continue throughout all the cosmos, through eternity. That is the only thing." And that awakening and that shift has been monumental for me when I look at the world and say, what's going to happen? And I go, whatever happens, all I need to do, all you need is love.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, profound and simple, right? It's the answer that's been with us the entire time. It's the message we hear the most. It is the great truth. And it's so easy to overcomplicate it.
And take it for granted.
Take it for granted.
Take it for granted. Too easy. But it's not easy. It's not easy to love all the time. It's not.
No, especially when we've gone through that illusion of separation. But I feel like, and you know, you've been watching longer, but I feel like the illusion's breaking. People are breaking through. We're getting it. We realize we're a pack. We are connected. You know, what happens to you does affect me directly.
Yes.
And so wanting for you the best that you can have, I'm literally wanting for me too. It's like, you're winning, I win. And that's the way we're starting to work. And I'm seeing it. And there's so many people I've been blessed to talk to in this summit. And it's like the same message keeps coming through because it's the truth.
Yes. And you know, the last piece I'll say about that is that I'm dedicated to creating ways for people to remember who they are. And for me, the most powerful way I know how to do that is to have people go inside and come away from the outer. You know, they say if you, like Carl Jung said, you know, if you want to know who you really are and you want the answers, look inside. And of course, all the yogis, gurus, teachers have said that, for, you know, ad infinitum. So we know that's true at some level, but we still look outside. And it's okay to look outside because that shows you what the inside is, you know. If you like what you're seeing outside, you're probably creating a world pretty good. If you don't, there's some inner changes that have to happen, and they happen in here. And to find a method, whatever that is for you, meditation, yoga, creative journaling, you know, fasting, whatever it may be. For me, using the breath on a daily basis, and sometimes I'll just sit and do some breathing in nature or on my couch or in bed before I get up. And then occasionally taking full on shamanic breathwork journeys that are epic, and that usually, once I've done it, it's like carries me for several weeks or a month or something to find out what's really going on. Because in here, I know.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to touch on the shamanic breath work. I mean, this is such a huge part of what you do. And I know like the little sands in the hourglass are trickling down, but we're going to do this. We're going to talk about this. Explain to us in like a short version of what shamanic breath work is. I know we have the book, so let's just remind people that you can also get her book, Shamanic Breathwork. It's available now on Amazon and anywhere you can find books. So that's going to answer a bigger question for you. But just for now, what's the tip of the spear?
Okay. And I would say there's two Shamanic Breathwork books. There's this one that tells you more the how-to.
Okay.
This will give you more the how-to and just explain the initiations that we take you through. And this one really shares deep personal stories of people who've used it for their own healing, and it became their profession in the world. And they're doing it pretty much full time in the world and transforming, rocking all around the world. There's several countries that people are in. So those are the two main workbooks, if you will.
Okay.
So right now there is exciting. There is an explosion of breath work happening all around the world. When I first started doing breath work back in the 70s and the 80s, it was more through yoga and meditation, those kinds of things. And then in the 80s, as rebirthing was coming into the United States and people started studying Paramahansa Yogananda and the science of mind and the science of breath and practicing different breathing techniques, and the Beatles were doing it. So, everybody was doing psychedelics and doing breath work and all those kind of things. It was limited to kind of a few people and a few things. But now, because it's its time, I think breath work was born for now. And it was born for then too, but it was born for now because it is such an empowering process. You don't have to use plant medicine. You can, but you don't have to. You don't have to use psychedelics. You can, but you don't have to. You don't have to fast, but you can. You don't have to do yoga, but you can. You don't have to meditate, but you can. You don't have to go in a cave, but you can. I do breathe on the airplane. I get back, back there breathing. I got my earphones on, they come by, you want anything? No, and then I'm journaling, and that sort of thing. And so the shamanic breath work for me was the particular, I guess you could say, synchronistic place in my life. Close to 30 years ago, where I'd done different breath works and all kinds of different trainings and all kinds of different things. But there were really only about 2 or 3 people doing breath work on the planet. And nobody in my family or nobody I knew really knew what breath work was or had done it. But I found it, or found me. And I knew the first time I did breath work, I had the eureka, my goddess, this is it. Because I had done all those other things. And this was simply lying on the floor, listening to some music and breathing, and my world completely changed. And what I mean by that, people say that, and it was a 3-hour session at the time. We only do hour or hour and a half now, but that was 3-hour sessions back then.
Wow. During
that 3-hour session, I cried, I screamed, I beat on pillows, I rebirthed, I threw up, I flew with the angels. I saw that image of Michelangelo with where touching the finger of God. I tripped out more than I had on any substances. I came back and my eyes, I looked like the gurus. And we were sitting in a little process group and 300 people had just breathed in that room. And they said to me, would you like to share what happened for you? And I couldn't talk, believe it or not. All I could say was, I'm going to do this. And they said, what? I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to breathe people. I'm like, that's good, but tell us about your process. I said, I'm going to do. That's all I could say. I couldn't say anything else. I went home to my husband at the time that I was married to. He said, how was your? I said, I'm going to do this. And the truth is that I went through impossible odds in a little town in Western Kentucky in my life to start doing this and to find grandmother Twyla and to do all the things that happened, which has taken me all over the world with thousands and thousands of people. I've breathed grandmother Twyla like in her 90s. And she said, wow, I wish I'd found this earlier. I said, what do you think, Graham? Like wanting there to, she says, oh, I wish I'd found this earlier. She was like 90, I think, when she breathed. But anyway, she loved it. She says, you've got something, girl. Do it, like that. And she was so cute. And she, and nothing against sweat lodges, because I was just in one recently, but she said, oh, I like this so much better than sweating. She says, I don't like to sweat. She said such a great sense of humor.
She sounds amazing. And I'm sure she's with you all the time.
She is. She's always talking through me and making jokes. I have to say, not now, Graham, I need to be serious. But she was such a trickster. She said such a humor. But the last piece I want to say about it is that, it's one of those things trying to describe like, what sushi tastes like. You really have to experience it, but it is so user friendly. It really is. And people say, why is it shamanic? And I'm like, because there's nothing more shamanic than breathing, awakening your consciousness and seeing what needs to transform and change in your life, and to feel the energy come in and to gain the power to do it, and to let your old self die and to be reborn.
It sounds like, because I was going to, this conversation has been so incredible. I've just let it flow. But one of the questions I was going to ask you is like, what's one tangible step? And I feel like you just answered the question. So start with the breath, and definitely working with you. And that's what I want to share with people, is that you actually have a gift that you're sharing with the audience. So can we talk about this amazing gift? Because I think you guys are going to like it.
Well, I'm pretty excited about it. Now we can do things with these links and Zooms and stuff, and I can share with people, and I love it. And so with the Shamanic Breathwork book, we did a link in the back of that book. And so when people buy that book, they can do the, get the link and they can do a breathing session. But I've decided that I want to just, whenever I'm doing these different interviews, to just go ahead and, make sure that people have the link and that they can go ahead with or without buying the book. Because right now, my goal, and has been, is to breathe the world. It is to really breathe the world. And so in that, you'll actually see me talking a little bit just at the beginning about the breath work, not long, and then using the drum and taking people into a meditative state to go into the journey. And then original music that I helped create with, actually, that comes from some shaman friends, and also from a DJ named DJ Free, who's one of my graduate students, that music comes on and you start breathing to the music, which I've given you instructions how to do. And you go on a journey for about an hour. And then at the end, I'm there drumming you to come back out and encouraging you what to do, to how to integrate your journey. So it's a full-on journey for people. And I'm hoping that people will experience it if they feel called to. And if you want to know more, to contact us at shamanicbreathwork.org.
Yes, please get that link. I'm definitely signing up and getting that breath work. I want to do it. After talking about it, I'm like, let's just do it. I want to do it right now. And before we go, I just want to talk about what's happening, what's coming up next. So we had talked about the mystery tours, that we just talked about the one you came back from, but you had mentioned that there's actually something coming up.
Yes, there's several things in July. If you go to shamanicbreathwork.org and go to the events page, you'll see everything that's there. One of the things that's coming up is for women only. Sorry, guys, but it's for the sensual wild women to be in nature and to do 4 days of being in nature at elemental temples here on the mountain with me and with some other wild shamanic women. So I will say that ahead of time. If you want to get your wild on, this is a place, and you want to get back into nature, and we'll be doing breath work as well. So that happens in July. You can look that up. The other really big thing that's happening is our 2-week training at Teotihuacan in Mexico at the pyramids. We're just in that at Dreaming House. We'll be there for 2 weeks for a 2-week intensive. And that 2-week intensive, if you already have done what we call SHIP, which is our first level training, then you can take the second level, which will train you as a breathwork facilitator. If you haven't taken the breathwork facilitation, we have parallel programs going on there, and I'll be in and out of both of those programs. It'll be a group probably of 40 to 50 people. There's already about 38 people signed up, and that happens in September. There's things being added throughout the year. We're looking at next year taking another mystery tour to Egypt and possibly back to Avalon. So yeah,
that's exciting. Oh, so many just magical things happening in your world. And I hope that, by the way, everyone, the link to the breathwork session is below this video. So you can go ahead and click on it and get access to it now, and then learn more about what Linda Starr-Wolf is doing over at shamanicbreathwork.org. And I mean, I'm going to be watching, because that's how I found you. As I was just like, oh wow, what is she doing? Like I loved what you were putting out in the world, and you were just so inspiring. So thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing with us the path of leadership through that beautiful wolf guidance and knowledge. I so appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for doing this. This is exactly, I can tell that this is exactly your purpose, at this time. And you're doing a fantastic job. And you too are also very personable and loving. And so thank you for bringing that energy to all of us and making this possible. And who knows who will be touched by this interview and all the interviews that you're doing. So just want
Thank
to
you.
namaste you in that. And thank you.
Thank you so much. And to those of you watching, you know how much I love you, and you can feel the love coming out of all of these interviews. So I look forward to bringing you more for the New Earth Leadership Summit. And until next time, stay magical.